All right, joining me now is David Pine. Boy, there is a lot that happened since we were last on the air Friday. Let's see if we can bring you up to speed with Russia and Ukraine and the Houthis and all the strikes that were made by the president over the weekend. Joining me now is one of our national security experts, David Pine. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brandon. Good to be with you today.
Great. Hope you had a good weekend. Let's go right away to the Iran Observer. Here's what they put out. Yemen confirmed that it launched 18 ballistic missiles against the U.S. Truman aircraft carrier. No mention of dead leaders, while the U.S. claims to have hit Houthi leaders. All right. 18. Obviously, they didn't make contact with the ship. I mean, we must have some pretty amazing anti-ballistic missile stuff on those ships, do we not?
We do, and just to alert your viewers, these are advanced anti-ship ballistic missiles that we've never encountered in combat before. In fact, this may be the only combat usage of anti-ship ballistic missiles in history.
Wait a minute, let me just stop you right there. You're telling me that our aircraft, the U.S. Truman aircraft carrier, just encountered something for the first time in military history?
No, it was encountered last year during the Biden administration is when we first started having these exchanges with the Houthis.
Okay, so but it still is fairly new then.
Yeah, it happened for the first time last year in our exchanges in the Red Sea. So it is a very effective and dangerous missile that, even like one or two, I think, could potentially sink one of our destroyers.
And they had 18 shot at them. 18.
Yeah, 18 had a carrier strike group. So thankfully we shot them all down. I'd only seen 10 reported, but it's possible it could have been up to 18.
Well, let's see what President Trump says about this. He says, "Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks being made by the Houthi, by Houthi, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen, who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that that force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control. But they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran, and Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire." Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Now, I cannot confirm, but there are reports that there may be some of our aircraft headed toward Iran, maybe possibly preparing for strikes, because one of the leaders of Iran, he's not backing down. Here we go. This is Russia Today. Yemen retaliates with attack on U.S. aircraft carrier. Okay, we got that. But listen, we will not hesitate to target all U.S. warships in the Red Sea and Arabian Sea. I think there's going to be some, underscore reading here to do, folks. The transcript. Here we go.
شن العدو الأمريكي عدوانا سافرا على بلدنا خلال الساعات الماضية بأكثر من 47 غارة جوية استهدفت مناطق عدة في محافظات صنعاء وصعدة والبيضاء وحجة وضمار ومارب والجوف. وارتكب العدو الأمريكي عددا من المجازر، حيث أدى هذا العدوان إلى استشهاد وجرح العشرات في حصيلة غير نهائية. وردا على هذا العدوان نفذت القوات المسلحة بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت من خلالها حاملة الطائرات الأمريكية USS هاري ترومان والقطع الحربية التابعة لها شمالي البحر الأحمر، وذلك ب18 صاروخا باليستيا ومجنحا وطائرة مسيرة في عملية مشتركة نفذتها القوة الصاروخية وكذلك سلاح الجو المسير والقوات البحرية.
All right, so there you go. That's what they're saying, and apparently none of them landed on that aircraft carrier, didn't do any damage. But President Trump is saying, you keep this up, we're going to retaliate. What do you think is being set up here? What are we headed toward, David?
Well, first, let me point out that I believe those, anti-ship ballistic missiles are likely hypersonic missiles. So, if indeed they were fairly accurate, which they may not be, this demonstrates, a pretty good, air defense or missile defense capability by our carrier strike groups. But this is a very dangerous game that the president is playing, because in my assessment and in the assessment of Dr. Peter Pry and James Woolsey, former CIA director, Iran has had nuclear weapons for nearly a decade now, at least. And, the idea that we would strike a nuclear power directly with, air or missile strikes carries with it, of course, a risk of nuclear EMP war at a time that China is likely primed to blockade and potentially invade Taiwan in mere weeks. The Trump gambit of making peace with Russia and forging a new strategic partnership with Russia, to counter China, is way behind schedule. It's proceeding at a snail's pace. Thankfully, there's another Trump-Putin call tomorrow. That could make, substantial progress if Trump decides rightly that he the U.S. should negotiate a peace deal directly with Russia and leave Ukraine and the EU out. But it's things. Now's not the time to be trigger happy when it comes to Iran or China. We have to keep the world pacified until we can successfully neutralize the Sino-Russian alliance.
Okay, so you're kind of going where I think we have warned about. My concern is that President Trump would be elected, not that he'd be elected. My concern was that once he was elected, that there would be the desire to have Trump overwhelmed with so many things and potentially setting up World War III, a war in the Middle East, a war with Iran, triggering China against Taiwan, China against the Philippines. I mean, now you've got communists in place in South Korea, wanting to basically partner up with North Korea. Gordon Chang is warning about that. We've got problems all over this globe, and we can't have them all going off at the same time. Our military cannot handle that. President Trump needs to build back up the military. We cannot handle that. Plus, weren't we giving away a bunch of our armaments during the Biden regime to Ukraine? And they're talking about months or years to replenish some of that, David. So my concern is, A, is that true? And B, aren't these the hot spots we've been warning about around the globe and being triggered at one time?
Yeah, unfortunately, President Trump, through no fault of his own, inherited, a world on fire left from Joe Biden's failed and disastrous foreign policy. I don't think it was related to, the failure in Afghanistan, but I think it would have happened anyway under Biden. But, especially in Ukraine and the Middle East, we have two regional wars that continue to be raging. In Israel, of course, the Gaza war is under a temporary ceasefire, but it looks like Israel is likely to break that and resume the war with U.S. support. But Iran is a formal member of the Sino-Russian alliance. A lot of people don't realize that. It has a formal military, kind of mutual defense pact arrangements with both Beijing and Moscow. So if the U.S. were to hit Iran directly and brazenly, with some kind of major air and or missile attack, it could bring in Russia and China in the war against us. And we could be embroiled in World War III. And, I just can't overemphasize the fact that China is primed and ready to invade Taiwan. And April is, early April is literally the second best time of the year to do so. October, I think, is a little bit better, but April is really a great time for them to stage an amphibious invasion. And the scale of their preparations is just beyond belief. We've seen nothing like it since, the weeks preceding the U.S. invasion of Normandy, France in 1944. So, we have to, speed up the negotiations with Russia and the war in Ukraine, neutralize the Sino-Russian alliance with some kind of mutual security agreement with Moscow. But we have to hold down the fort in the Middle East. We can't, now is not the time to be escalating against Iran. If Trump wants to continue bombing the Houthis I don't see a problem with that, except that it wastes away our, missile strike capability that we need to deter China from attacking Taiwan. As you mentioned, we've given away the store. We can unilaterally disarm the U.S. military in, transferring massive amounts of advanced weapon systems and munitions to Ukraine, which it will take up to a decade to replenish.
Look at this here. Look at this here. I don't think President Trump is foolish enough to give in to neocon calls to start a nuclear EMP war with Iran. Laura Logan saying, breaking, Iran's Revolutionary Guards have put all missile forces on full alert. A joint U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran is possible. U.S. troops near Yemen are on high alert. Netanyahu has entered the operations room. Trump warns Iran will be responsible if the Houthis retaliate for the Yemen attack. U.S. MQ-4C Triton drone has been surveilling Iran's Bushehr nuclear site for hours. Growing chatter suggests something major is unfolding over Iran. You want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, my estimation is if we were to engage in this kind of massive, or major missile strike against Iran, for the first time with U.S. missile strikes, I think Iran would disclose that it's a nuclear power with probably dozens of nuclear-armed missiles, potentially even ICBM level range, but mostly, medium to intermediate range. They may or may not choose to disclose they have two super EMP satellites over the U.S., which they could use to take out all of our critical infrastructure within minutes without any warning whatsoever. So, a war with Iran is an existential threat to the United States of America, and hopefully Trump realizes that and all of this is just posturing and no actual, U.S. military direct strikes against Iran are being planned.
Wow. Okay. So I guess we're going to have to keep, obviously, a close eye on this and see where we go with this. But this, again, is where I go back to where people say, America is so back. I'm like, people, I don't know what you mean by America is so back. We are in a more dangerous time than we've been in a long time. We were at a most dangerous time under the Biden regime since the Cold War, and we may be at a more dangerous time now than we were in the Biden regime because we actually have someone in the White House that will engage these people. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't be a strong commander-in-chief and he shouldn't be doing the things he's doing, but Biden was a puppet. And now we got a guy in there who's not going to be pushed around. And that may mean that the level of threat to the country is actually higher now than when Biden was in. That's no insult toward the president. It's simply stating the reality that the enemies want to engage the country. There are globalists, and there is the red-green axis that wants to bring down America. And I think they would rather do something on Trump's watch so they can use it to damage Donald Trump. So I think there's more reason for them to go after us when Trump's in office, not Biden. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're mostly right. I think the threat is actually lessened, certainly from Russia, because Putin has no incentive to attack the United States while negotiations with Russia are underway, which will essentially give them everything they've wanted since 1989, which, well, other than being part of the Common House economic union with the EU, but in terms of the security architecture of Europe, I think Trump's fully on board with withdrawing U.S. troops from Eastern Europe, at least reducing U.S. ground troops to 2020 or 21 levels that were in place when he was president, which is about 37% reduction to current levels, as well as ending the war in Ukraine on mostly Russian terms. I don't see any chance of Trump agreeing to give any Ukrainian territory to Russia that they don't already control. So on that front, I think the threat's lessened, but there's still a threat. The neocons have been pushing Trump. I think Rubio and Waltz in particular, behind the scenes, to potentially sabotage a Trump peace deal with Russia by insisting on terms that are unacceptable to them in support of Ukraine. So if that's the case, we can absolutely push the Russians back into willingness to to aid China in a massive cyber attack in the U.S. In the event that Trump decides to defend Taiwan militarily from a Chinese blockade or invasion. So that's still a nuclear, as I like to say, nuclear World War III is still on the table or still on the menu, even with Trump as president. So
in some ways, in some areas we're better, but in other areas we're either the same or we're maybe a little more dangerous because of the globalists that want to engage something here to throw off Donald Trump, to make his polls collapse, to disrupt his agenda on the home front, on the national level. And then, of course, the desire, maybe by some of these other Islamic groups who see their 12th Imam coming through great chaos. So depending, I guess, on what we're talking about, it's either less, about the same, or greater in the danger from the Biden regime. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. With regards to China, I think the risk of war in terms of Trump reacting badly to a Chinese invasion are less because, he's demonstrated a desire to avoid World War III at all costs. So I think his gut desire would be to negotiate a peace deal to avert war if China began invading or blockading Taiwan. But at the same time, the Chinese know that as well. So the Chinese are actually more inclined to invade or blockade Taiwan, knowing that Trump is less likely to defend them militarily. So the chances of war, in a sense, are increased because the Chinese are more likely to, overall, because the Chinese are more likely to make a move. In the Middle East, I think Trump has always, that's the one theater I think that Trump has always been a little bit too bellicose on, as demonstrated during his first term and also this term as well. He attacked Syria for chemical weapons attacks, which were disputed. There's some, but not really a lot of hard evidence that they even did it. And even if they did, it's not really, it wasn't really an existential threat to the U.S. or any of its allies. We shouldn't have been involved in the Syrian civil war in the first place, and now we have an al-Qaeda regime that's mass murdering Christians and other minorities in Syria. But with regards to Iran, Trump proved, he actually refused the neocon calls to strike Iran directly in response to their missile strikes following his assassination of the IRGC commanding general, I think back around 2019. So if he follows that course of refusing to attack Iran directly, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Okay, let's go see what the Iranian leader, the Khomeini, is saying. Let's hear what he has to say here, guys.
اینی که رئیس جمهور آمریکا میگه ما آماده هستیم با ایران مذاکره کنیم و دعوت به مذاکره و ادعا میکنه که نامه‌ای فرستاده که البته به ما نرسیده، به من یعنی نرسیده. این به نظر من این فریب افکار عمومی دنیاست. این معناش این است که ما اهل مذاکره میخوایم مذاکره کنیم، صلح کنیم، دعوا نباشه. ایران حاضر به مذاکره نیست. خب ایران چرا حاضر به مذاکره نیست؟ به خودتون برگردید. ما نشستیم چند سال مذاکره کردیم. همین شخص مذاکره تمام شده، کامل شده، امضا شده رو از میز بیرون انداخت، پاره کرد. با این آدم چجور میشه مذاکره کرد؟ در مذاکره باید انسان مطمئن باشه طرف مقابل به اونچه که متعهد شد عمل خواهد کرد. وقتی میدونیم عمل نمیکنه چه مذاکره؟
All right, well, there you go. So I guess Iran is not coming to the table anytime soon, so they're continuing that push. All right, let's go to this article right here. U.S. Army tests Ukrainian long-range kamikaze drones under classified project. The Pentagon's Innovation Unit has evaluated Ukrainian-made loitering munitions designed to operate in GPS-denied environments and carry multiple payload types. Okay, wait a minute. Why are we doing this, David?
Well, let's hope that we're not doing that. I mean, I think Trump was just so brilliant to pull all U.S. military aid and intelligence aid, other than defensive intelligence, to Ukraine. I think that's what we should have done in the first place. If I had been president and Russia invaded Ukraine, first of all, it never would have happened like Trump. I would have simply said that Ukraine's never joining NATO, so they never would have invaded in the first place. But if they had, I would have only given defense intelligence, non-lethal military assistance to Ukraine. We never should have sent a single weapon or a single bullet to Ukraine. We never should have given them any targeting information for offensive weapons. And unfortunately, Trump was persuaded by the neocons to lift those restrictions and, restore U.S. military aid and offensive intelligence assistance other than, long-range missile strikes into Russia. And we've done so getting nothing in return. I mean, we got an empty promise that, Zelensky wants a ceasefire. I mean, that's absurd. He's been militant against a ceasefire. He threw a tantrum in the White House because President Trump and Vice President Vance asked him to support a ceasefire over and over again. He refused every time behind the cameras. Ukraine has not made a single concession, not one concession since Trump became president that would bring us closer to peace with Russia in terms of, peace terms. They've said the Russians have to withdraw from all of, formerly Ukrainian territory, including Crimea. Putin has to surrender himself on bogus war crimes tribunals for a crime that Russia never even committed. They have to provide $300 billion in reparations. They have to accept, up to 200,000 NATO peacekeepers along the front line so that any future Russian attacks will start World War III. I mean, right down the list, everything that Zelensky says, at least 3 or 4 major points, are completely unacceptable to Russia. So the idea that we would restore military aid with him being so adamant and militant against Trump's signature peace initiative of peace with Russia is quite frankly absurd.
Let's go to, I think there was the first Pentagon briefing today in the new Trump administration, correct?
Well, I know that Hegseth's given multiple comments so far. I don't know that his. I wasn't aware that there was his spokesman had given a press conference.
Yeah, I think they did. That was just today. They said, at least what I read was this is the first briefing we've gotten from his Pentagon outside of himself. Take a listen to this, please.
The initial wave of strikes hit over 30 targets at multiple locations, degrading a variety of Houthi capabilities. These included terrorist training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle infrastructure, weapons manufacturing capabilities, and weapons storage facilities. It also included a number of command and control centers, including a terrorist compound where we know several senior Houthi unmanned aerial vehicle experts were located. On Sunday, strike operations continued against additional headquarters locations, weapons storage facilities, as well as detection capabilities that have been used to threaten maritime shipping in the past. Today, the operation continues, and it will continue in the coming days until we achieve the president's objectives. It's a much broader set of targets that we've been able to action in this case. And the other key differences are the delegation of authorities from the president through Secretary Hegseth down to the operational commander. So that allows us to achieve a tempo of operations where we can react to opportunities that we see on the battlefield in order to continue to put pressure on the Houthis. We have some initial estimates. I hesitate to say what they are because they're very much estimates at this point, but I think in terms of dozens might be a safe overall characterization. On the civilian casualty side, no indications of any civilian casualties. We, of course, have seen some of the accusations by the Houthis. We look at those closely when they do come in, but we have no credible indications of any civilian casualties. Houthis claim to have tried to attack the Harry S. Truman. Quite frankly, it's hard to tell because while we're executing precision strikes, they missed by over 100 miles. I would just tell you their effectiveness, I would question anything that they claim in the press that they're doing or not doing. The Bashad is not currently being used for those operations, but we do know that other vessels are contemplated for those sorts of operations. We're watching very closely to see if they return to the AO.
Very interesting, David.
Yeah, I think the thing we need to keep in mind here is that the U.S. Navy was unable to win a war against the Houthis during the past, 14, 15 odd months. What makes us confident that we can win a war against the Houthis today without an insertion of massive amounts of U.S. ground force? I think the chances of that are very slim. So. While this is good PR, to degrade the Houthis, to decapitate some of their leadership, I think it's not going to succeed. I don't think it's going to succeed in reducing their military capabilities by any substantial degree. And so we have to as Putin likes to say, we have to look at the root causes of the conflict. Why are the Houthis engaging in these attacks? And the answer is because the Israel-Gaza war is not in a satisfactory state of resolution, meaning that the Israelis are not following through on their end in terms of beginning the second phase of the ceasefire, which is negotiating a post-war settlement in which the Hamas would be out of power, but Israeli troops would not remain occupying Gaza, and Gaza would be administered by a Palestinian Authority, perhaps with Arab peacekeeping troops. So that's a solution to end the conflict with the Houthis. It's much more effective than hurling dozens of more tomahawks against them. Another part of the solution would be to withdraw all U.S. troops from Iraq and Syria. That's in the U.S. national security interests. Our troops there are in too few numbers to be an effective deterrent. In fact, they're essentially a tripwire to a larger regional war with Iran. So Trump's made, he's declared a desire to withdraw those troops over the past 6+ years. I think he ought to make good on doing so now. And we can retain a military presence in the region, principally in the Red Sea and whatnot. But again, the way to end this conflict and quote unquote defeat the Houthis, it's not a military solution. It's a diplomatic one, I think.
And then let's go to this one. You talk about the president of Hungary, Viktor Orban. He announced the rainbow colored global empire, which is exactly what the U.S. was under Biden. No more. President Trump is dismantling America's liberal empire and supporting freedom across the world. Viktor Orban is one of the few guys. He's kind of the Trump version in Hungary. And, of course, he's been speaking out against these guys for some time. What is it he's now warning about?
Well, what he's saying is, the EU has been pressuring Hungary, of course, to, abandon its refusal to get on board with the war in Ukraine. It's accusing Orban of having an illiberal, government, democratically elected, but somehow autocratic. In fact, the truth is the exact inverse. It's the EU countries that are, socialist regimes that are, trying to start nuclear war with Russia that are, in fact, the regimes that are crushing democracy and freedom. Germany, of course, we saw that with the AfD trying to classify the only conservative nationalist party since before Hitler came to power in Germany as somehow, being investigated for extremism when in fact they're quite mainstream, conservative nationalist party along the lines of Trump's Republican Party today. Then, of course, in Romania, we've seen the leading presidential candidate or first place finisher in the presidential election that was canceled by the Romanian higher constitutional court. He's been arrested. He's been banned from posting on social media, essentially taken out of the running. That's what Putin does in Russia, and that's what the EU governments they're adopting Putin's methods in an attempt to to crush conservatism and freedom in the EU.
Excellent. David Pine, it's dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. David, our national security expert, we sure appreciate all your analysis, David.
Thanks, Brandon. Always a pleasure.
You too, my friend. dpine.substack.com, D, and then PYNE.substack.com. He also works with the EMP Task Force. Their website is emptaskforce.us, emptaskforce.us. All right, don't forget, we're coming to Milwaukee. Take a look at the screen right here. Coming to Milwaukee on April 15th. That's a Tuesday night. It's filling fast. We've got about 900 of the tickets gone now. They're free, but you got to register. worldviewtube.com/events. worldviewtube.com/events. It's free, but you got to register. Use your email to register everybody individually. You can use the same email multiple times, but you got to register each individual so we can count them as a chair. So we have enough chairs in the auditorium, okay? Tweet it, text it, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, whatever you do. Let's fill the bottom and the top of this Waukesha Expo Center just outside of Milwaukee. President Reagan did a rally in there. President Trump's done 2 rallies in there. It's a great venue. I've been using that venue and going there since 1996. It's a great venue. So please spread the word far and wide. It is free. Myself, Dr. Andy Woods, Aaron Lavarco, our reporter on the ground from Israel, will be in the building. It's free, 6:30 to 9:30. 6:30 to 9:30. We will take an offering with our foundation to offset the costs. So please come prepared to be very generous so we at least break even. I think renting the building is going to be like $4,000 between the building and everything. We have to pay $2 a chair. So if we put out 1,000 chairs, that's $2,000. Plus we have the rental of the building itself. So come prepared to write a check to the foundation if you can. But other than that, it is free. I think cash probably works too. And we'll have some books that we'll bring with us for those of you who are asking. Yep. And well, I think some of the other speakers will have some things you can buy and visit with them, talk to them, get a picture with them, whatever you want to do. You guys will love it. It's going to be great. This will be our first time to do a Worldview Weekend rally in 7 years. So we're getting back out there, folks, and look forward to seeing a lot of you in person. So spread the word far and wide. Now, don't forget, go over to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. There you'll find out about our fall conference coming up this fall, October 3rd and 4th. That's a Friday night and a Saturday with myself, Alex Newman, Gordon Chang, Sidney Powell, Dr. Lana, Chris Martinson, and Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. Okay? The seats are all one price, $99. We brought the price down because we're saving money bringing it to the Mid-South. So we're passing the savings on to you, but there are only 350 seats. When they're gone, they're gone. But you can live stream it if you're a Vault member. By the way, you can also live stream the event coming up in April at the Waukesha Expo Center on April 15th. Vault members, you'll be able to live stream it. There's advantage to being a member of the Vault at worldviewtube.com/vault. You get access to 35 years of our content, and you also get to live stream all these special events we're doing. So do check that out, worldviewtube.com/vault. All right, check this out, guys. worldviewtube.com/about. I want to make sure you go there. We worked really hard. Our team worked really hard on this. worldviewtube.com/about. Okay? This tells our 35-year history. We are getting so many positive comments about this page. People are like, I didn't realize that you've been doing this kind of thing this long. Oh yeah, we're not like a lot of these folks who just got a microphone and a camera and started in the last couple of years. Most of them who have never written a book, never written a scholarly research paper. No, they haven't held 300 conferences around the country. They've not been hosting radio and TV and doing documentaries, but for the last 12 to 24 months, which is fine. Everybody's free to join the game. But a lot of these people, they have no scholarship behind them. They have a microphone and a camera and an opinion, but no scholarship. And yet you can look and see what we've been doing for 35 years and who we've been working with in those 35 years. Okay? So this totally sets us apart from most of these people. Okay? This is why most of these people that have all these followers on Twitter, all they're doing is retweeting other people's stuff. They don't do their own homework. They don't do their own research. They don't write books. They don't write position papers. They don't regularly write articles. They just simply take other people's work and retweet it. And that's fine. But what separates us from them is we're not out for clickbait. We're not trying to be social media stars. That's not what we're doing. We're a legitimate broadcast network. We're legitimate journalists, authors, producers. And we have a long track record to prove what we've done, who we've worked with, our credibility, to talk about these issues from the lens of a Christian worldview and the 6 dominant worldviews that rule the world. Most of these guys out there today don't have a clue about worldviews. And if you don't understand worldview, folks, you're never going to solve the problem. Your worldview is the foundation of your values, and your values is the foundation of your conduct. You have to understand the 6 dominant worldviews ruling the world and how that worldview, be it secular humanism, cosmic humanism, New Age, which is New Age, postmodernism, Islam. You've got to understand how these various 6 dominant worldviews apply to the area of law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion. because you'll never win the battle for hearts and minds of your children, your grandchildren, or be able to convince your friends and neighbors the error of their ways unless you can refute arguments that are contrary to the Christian worldview. The Bible says to destroy every argument raised up against the principles of the Lord, not the individual. We don't want to destroy individuals. We want to destroy their arguments, right? So they will then come to the side of truth. Well, that means you've got to be a student, right? Which means that takes some time. Well, we've been doing this as students for 35 years. So check it out, folks. worldviewtube.com/about. And then before we go to our next guest, go to worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. After you've been to worldviewtube.com/vault, here's the question you should ask yourself. Is this an organization that has a long track record? Yep. Thus, do they prove that they're going to stay the course? Well, I think after 35 years, we're not going to change course now, right? No, we're not. We are who we are. We're not changing course now, folks. We have no desire. We've proven. We're not interested in putting our finger in the wind and seeing which way it blows and go that direction. Nope. We've been consistently talking about the Christian worldview, its underpinning of our constitutional republic, the problems, the solutions. And if you appreciate that, we need your support. Worldviewfoundation.com. You'll find our mailing address there. Folks, I got to have your support to keep it all out. Everyone can watch free of charge. Otherwise, I can put it behind a paywall. Otherwise, I put it behind a paywall. Or I can just load this show up with nonstop commercials for pickup trucks and Jeeps. Trust me, the companies are ready. We know who they are. They are ready and willing to drop in all kinds of commercials and take a commercial break every 10 minutes for 4 or 5 minutes. If you don't want that, and I sure don't want that, I need your support right now, please. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you to those who are supporting us. If you're not, and you can, please consider doing so.